What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. I know it's late, but I am going to be doing the video on the movies of August. I'm going to highlight the month of August, highlight some of the bad films, highlight some of the good films, whatnot. Again, I know it's late. It's September 8th. But I am going to be doing that, and I'll also highlight what's coming out in September that I think looks interesting and I think that looks interesting and is a big time movie, basically. So without further ado, let's get right to it. And the first movie I'm going to highlight is a movie called Dark Places, which came out August 7th. It has Charlize Theron in it, one of the best actresses of our going right now. Christina Hendricks from Mad Men, Chloe Grace Moretz, the young actress, I think she's like 17, 18 years old, something like that. So she's very young, but she's a very acclaimed actress. The Dark Places, it's a movie about, there's this brother of the main character, Charlize Theron, who was wrongfully accused of a murder or something like that. I don't think he did a murder. He committed a murder. Not really sure. But I know it has something to do with Charlize Theron's character's brother, who killed a lot of people, including people allegedly did it, I think. Something like that, including the one she loved. It's something like that. As you can tell, I didn't see the film, but it just looks interesting. And actually, with that kind of story, and with that kind of story and that kind of interesting plot, this should have made a good movie, but it didn't. According to critics on Rotten Tomatoes, it got a 28% approval rating. That's not good. So unfortunately, that movie did not do well. I think it's a smaller movie too. Yeah, very small film. It only made $210,000 at the box office, so it's a small film, definitely. But I mention it because it has a lot of big names in it. Also came out August 7th. Was one of the biggest disappointments of the year, and that was Fantastic Four. It was a reboot of the Fantastic Four series. There were two Fantastic Four movies before then. Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. Those movies were not well critically received. I think they made money, but they just weren't critically received at all. Well critically received. But this one is a reboot. It kind of tells the story again of how the Fantastic Four formed and how they have to unite to defeat the villain Doctor Doom. I have the first movie actually on DVD. The first movie and the second movie, they have Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, Michael Chiknis, I think is how you pronounce the name, and Ion Gruffud, or whatever, however you pronounce the last name. But anyway, Fantastic Four was a huge disappointment. It's underperformed at the box office. On a $120 million budget, it earned $155.9 million. I think it might still be going in theaters, but it's not. It just hasn't done well. But I'm thinking it might be on its tail end, something like that. I'm not really sure. But here's where it gets bad. critically, it only got a 9% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. You know your movie's bad when you have less than a 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. You know the movie's bad. I've heard that the Fantastic Four movie was boring. It just didn't tell the story extremely well. And yeah, basically this movie was very disappointing, despite the cast. Miles Teller, up-and-coming young actor, or actually he's a young actor. He was in one of my favorite movies from last year, Whiplash. Michael B. Jordan, who's a young up-and-coming actor. Kate Mara, who's a young up-and-coming actor. So they had talent, and they had a guy who is a good director, Josh Trank, but unfortunately this movie did not work. And it was because the studio, Fox Studio, they basically went behind Josh Trank's back and they changed the movie on him. They changed the movie on him. They took out a lot of the stuff that he wanted in his film that probably would have been a lot better. If the stuff had stayed in the film, it would have been a lot better. And unfortunately, the interference from the studio cost the movie. It really did. And as a result, Fantastic Four is a box office bomb and critical disaster. One of the most disappointing, if not the most disappointing movie of the year. The next movie I'm going to be talking about is a small movie called The Gift. And I mention it because it has Jason Bateman in it. Jason Bateman is, of course, known for more comedic type roles. He actually takes a dramatic role in this film. Also, Joel Edgerton is the main person in this movie. One of the main people as well, and an actress named Rebecca Hall. The Gift has done extremely well. A small movie made on a budget of $5 million, it made $43 million. So it was a huge success. Huge success. And critically, a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's very good. It makes me want to see the movie for sure. I've heard it's so good. You know, I've heard it was a big surprise. Not a lot of people expected this movie to be good, and it did. It just turned out to be good. It was one of those good movies that turned out to be a big surprise to a lot of people. And this movie's about a guy, two former high school classmates, Edgerton and Bateman's characters, and apparently there's a history between them because Joel Edgerton's character wants to get revenge on Jason Bateman's character in a very creepy sort of way. So that's kind of how I perceive the plot of the film to be. I could be totally off, but I definitely want to see it sometime. I definitely want to see The Gift. Next film on the list is the latest Meryl Streep movie, Ricky and the Flash. Meryl Streep is considered one of the greatest actresses of our generation, if not all time. The resume is amazing. 19 Oscar nominations. 19! It's unheard of how many Academy Awards she's been nominated for. The most nominations of any actress. She's only won 3, however. 3 Academy Award nominations. She was just nominated last year for the movie Into the Woods. So she stars in Ricky and the Flash, and this movie's about her as a rocker, as a rock star, who kind of wants to reignite her past while while getting closer to her family, who she kind of abandoned or something like that when she became famous. Back in the day, I think that's how it works. Anyway, another guy in the movie is Kevin Kline. And the rock star Rick Springfield is in the movie as well. But yeah, on a budget of $18 million, it's made $31 million, so not a huge success by any stretch. It's not a great box office showing, and critically, the movie got mixed reviews, 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you go. I mean, the movie did decently, and it did decently because it had a powerhouse actress in Meryl Streep that saved the film, basically. So that's Ricky and the Flash. And the next movie I'm going to be talking about, it came out August, all the movies I've mentioned so far, it came out August 7th. Wide release, I believe, for some of them. August 14th was a big week. First of all, you had the action comedy The Man from U.N.C.L.E. It stars the main characters in the film, Henry Cavill, who played, of course, Henry Cavill is known for Superman. He played Superman in Man of Steel. And Armie Hammer, who probably is best known for playing the Lone Ranger in the movie The Lone Ranger, with Johnny Depp. A movie actually I liked. I enjoyed. Not a lot of people like that movie, but I enjoyed it. So anyway, Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer are two spies. Henry Cavill's a British spy. Armie Hammer's a Russian spy. They have to work together to stop a nuclear attack or something like that. That's basically what the plot is, I think. But The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Opening weekend, I know Man from U.N.C.L.E. was in the top 5, but it wasn't number 1. Man from U.N.C.L.E. on a budget of $75 million made $87.6 million. Not a big total. Not really that impressive for The Man from U.N.C.L.E. considering the budget and the money it made. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. actually is based on a TV series back in the 60s, also called The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And it's like, not a lot of people from our generation remember this show. Not a lot of people even know what the show is. But a lot of people that were around in the 50s and 60s knew what this show was about and all that. So it kind of catered to them. Probably more so than our generation, definitely. Critically, the movie got a 67%, so mixed reviews. Not absolutely great, but decently, and it did decently enough. And I hear that Armie Hammer and Henry Cavill's chemistry were good. Was pretty good. So the next film I'm going to be talking about is probably the biggest movie of August, and that would be Straight Outta Compton. It is the biopic about the history of NWA, the group that formed as a response to a lot of the social upheaval, the social chaos that it's Dr. Dre, Eazy-E, and Ice Cube, and they formed NWA as a sort of protest, as a sort of message against the higher powers that treated them wrong in their ghetto settings, basically. So they got, actually, interesting fact, they got Ice Cube's son to play Ice Cube in this movie. Ice Cube's son. So that was kind of impressive. Also, there is a veteran actor in this movie, Paul Giamatti. You may know him from a lot of different films. Big Fat Liar, actually, is the one I know him best from. But Straight Outta Compton was a big hit. It definitely, I think it's been in the top 10, top 5 box office wise for like 4 straight weeks. So it's done very well. On a $28 million budget, it's made $168.5 million so far. That is very good. And critically, the movie got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's very good. So a lot of critical praise, and it's made the money. People want to go see this film because it's a look back at the history of NWA, and so NWA is, well, the first letter, or the first word of the first acronym, N, stands for that word that not a lot of black people like to hear, basically. Not a lot of black people like to hear it all. And then WA is with attitude. So that's what it stands for. Next film on the list is American Ultra. And American Ultra came out August 21st, actually. American Ultra is an interesting film because it stars Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart. 2 people, it's an action comedy, by the way. 2 people who you would not expect to be in an action comedy. They had teamed up before, I believe, in the movie Zombieland. Both of them, I think, had teamed up before. But this is about a stoner, played by Jesse Eisenberg, who gets a lot of covert operatives, gets a lot of secret spy skills back all of a sudden when danger comes his way. And he teams up with his girlfriend, I think. Kristen Stewart's his girlfriend in the movie or something like that. Topher Grace from That 70s Show is in the movie. And veteran actor John Leguizamo is also in the film. American Ultra overall, box office budget-wise, it's made $28 million. So far, it's only made $14.5 million. So it hasn't been a big success so far. And critically, the film got a, let me see here, a 45% rating, which is mixed and it's actually a rotten review. But mixed, kind of mixed, but it still is a rotten review. It's probably a more of a disappointing type film than a good film, probably. Also Hitman Agent 47 came out August 21st. Based on, it's the second movie in the Hitman series. There was a movie called, titled Hitman, that came out, I believe, in 2007, pardon me, it was 2007. And that movie in 2007 did not do very well, critically, I think. This Hitman film made it made $63.5 million on a budget of $35 million. So it has been successful so far. It's done all right. Just critically 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. Showing once again that video game movies just aren't very good. The video game genre has not translated well into movies. It just hasn't. And excuse me. And Excuse me again. But anyway, this movie has been a big disappointment. Probably to a lot of video game fans and just regular fans, critics in general. Obviously, if the movie got a 7% rating, also came out August 21st is the movie Sinister 2. It's a horror film, and it's a sequel to the first Sinister movie, which came out in 2012. I just mentioned that because I've heard of the movie before. Reception for this film is not good. 13% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And on a $10 million budget, it made only $28.4 million. So, not a lot of well-known actors in the film, just like Hitman Agent 47. But yeah, this movie just disappointed as opposed to the first movie, which I think did pretty well. The next film I'm going to be talking about is the movie No Escape, which came out August 26th. I think it came out a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. I think that day was a Wednesday. No Escape is an interesting film because the three main stars are well known. The two especially are Owen Wilson and Pierce Brosnan. Lake Bell is also in this movie. This movie's an action thriller film. Now, Owen Wilson did some action films early on in his career, did blockbuster action-type films early on in his career, but he is most well known for comedy. Pierce Brosnan is kind of riding on James Bond. He's still riding on the James Bond success that he had. This movie is about Owen Wilson and Lake Bell are this couple that are in Southeast Asia, living in Southeast Asia, and unfortunately for them, there is a coup of government in Southeast Asia. There's a lot of violence and terror, and Pierce Brosnan has to help Wilson and Bell escape, basically. And since I don't know escape, he has to try to help them escape. The movie overall, on a budget of $5 million, this is a smallish movie, and it made $20 million at the box office, so it's done alright for its $5 million budget. Smaller film, definitely. But the movie got mixed reviews, 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, so not great. See here. I'm gonna mention this film. I did not mention it when I did the July movies video and reviewed August, and highlighted movies coming out in August. This movie is a Christian movie called War Room, and it turned out to be a big success. Nobody expected it to be the success that it was. War Room, on a budget of $3 million, made $28.7 million. It's made that total so far, which is very good. Negative reviews. It has received negative reviews, 36% on Rotten Tomatoes, which isn't good. But the money it made is just unbelievable for that type of film, for a Christian film, which they're not exactly household name films. Christian films. They just aren't. Let's see. Couple more. Two more films. War Room came out August 28th. Two other films that came out August 28th. The film We Are Your Friends, first off, is the first film I'll highlight here. And it stars Zac Efron. Zac Efron's a very interesting case because he went from a big Disney star. You may know him mostly from the Disney Channel and the High School Musical movies. Then he kind of branched out. He's done some acting, and the biggest role he's done so far is the comedy Neighbors, which I thought he was alright in with Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne. This is a headliner movie for him. And We Are Your Friends. I'll put it in a sense, I'll put it in short words. Nobody cared about this movie. Nobody went to go see it. First of all, this movie's about a DJ. Zac Efron's this DJ who wants to get into the DJ business, who wants to be very successful in the DJ business. There's this friend that mentors him. Efron's character gets with that friend's girl, and that's basically the film. On a budget of $6 million so far, it was a small movie to begin with. It's only made $3.7 million, but that's not the unbelievable negative reaction. On opening weekend, the film made about $1.5 million or so. Whatever amount of money it made opening weekend, actually I can kind of check that. It made $1,767,308 in its opening weekend. Number 14 at the box office that opening weekend. But it made history. It is fourth. It is actually the third. In the 2000s, it is the third worst film on opening weekend in terms of money. It speaks for itself. Nobody cared to see this film. Critically, it didn't do as bad as what I thought it would do. It got a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. While not good, it still isn't terrible. So yeah, this film is one movie that could either hurt Zac Efron in his movie career or just be a bump in the road on the way for him to be a big-time star. It could be either one of those things. And then the final movie I'm going to highlight for August is the movie Z for Zachariah. Another small film. It only hit theaters in a select number of theaters. Not very many at all. But it has an impressive cast. Chiwetel Ejiofor, who today he's known. I mean, he's known as a good actor. Chris Pine, who has been in a few different films, probably best known for Star Trek, the Star Trek films, as Captain Kirk. And Margot Robbie, who's probably best known now for The Wolf of Wall Street and the movie Suicide Squad, which she's going to be in. These three actors are in this film. They're the only three actors in the film, by the way. The only three. Box office-wise, it was limited because it only made $107,181. So, very limited. It actually already is on VOD, video on demand. So, actually, a lot of you guys can stream the movie, as a matter of fact. Critically, the movie got positive reviews. It got an 80% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you go. For 3 stars carrying that film, it was good. And Z for Zachariah is kind of about this, the apocalypse happens or something like that, and these 3 people find their way to each other, and they have to figure out a way to survive. Something like that, anyway. But yeah, that is it for the movies in August. Now, really quickly, I'm going to preview the movies in September. Just recently, September 4th, as a matter of fact, The Transporter Refueled came out. It is the reboot to the Transporter series. The Transporter series, of course, they are the movies that starred Jason Statham as Frank Martin, I think the name was, of the character. And Frank Martin, Jason Statham's character, was a hitman who delivered questionable packages to people, basically. Either a hitman or a driver or something like that. But anyway, that movie came out September 4th. I'll talk more about that when I do my September reviews. Excuse me, I'm tired. I am tired today. There is a movie that's coming out, a Christian movie that's coming out September 11th called 90 Minutes in Heaven. And I just mentioned that because there's two relatively well-known big stars, Hayden Christensen and Kate Bosworth. September 11th, Sleeping with Other People is coming out. The two main players in the movie, Jason Sudeikis and Alison Brie. It's a romantic comedy. Also September 11th, The Visit. The latest M. Night Shyamalan movie. It is coming out September 11th. The only well-known actor that's in it is Catherine Hahn. Also September 11th, or rather, September 18th, as a matter of fact, I think. Let me see here. September 18th is Black Mass. Black Mass is probably the biggest movie that's coming out in September. Black Mass is the latest Johnny Depp movie. I really want to see this film. It tells the story of Whitey Bulger, the mobster turned informant turned mobster again, basically. I think something like that. But yeah, a lot of big actors in this movie: Johnny Depp, Benedict Cumberbatch, Sienna Miller, Dakota Johnson from 50 Shades of Grey. So Black Mass is coming out September 18th. I really want it to be 100 times better than Mordecai, the movie that came out in January with Johnny Depp. And a movie that I'd rather forget, basically. I never want to see that movie again, let's just say that. One that looks interesting is a movie called Captive. Smaller type film. David Oyelowo and Kate Mara are the main stars in the movie. That's coming out September 18th. Excuse me. One of the other big movies that's coming out September 18th is Everest. Jake Gyllenhaal is the main star in this film. Everest is a story about climbers who climb Mount Everest and encounter a perilous journey, encounter a tough journey when they do climb Mount Everest. It might be a biopic, I'm not really sure. Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials is also coming out September 18th. A lot of movies coming out September 18th, by the way. But Maze Runner: The Scorch Trials is coming out. It's the sequel to the 2014 film The Maze Runner. So that's coming out. You've got Pawn Sacrifice coming out, which is a biopic on the chess grandmaster Bobby Fischer. And it stars Tobey Maguire as Bobby Fischer, by the way. And Sicario. So Sicario's coming out. It's a crime drama with Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, and Josh Brolin. It looks good. I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to see it, definitely. It is the same guy who directed Prisoners, I believe. Yes, it is the same guy who directed Prisoners. So I would love to see it because I loved the movie Prisoners. With Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal, it was really good. Didn't know I'd like it as much as I did, basically. and I really liked it. September 24th, rather, Hotel Transylvania 2 is coming out in September. The latest Adam Sandler movie. It's animated. Hotel Transylvania 2. I like the first Hotel Transylvania a lot. Now let's see how Hotel Transylvania 2 does. It returns a lot of the same people: Andy Samberg, Adam Sandler, Selena Gomez, David Spade, Kevin James, etc. And it puts in some new characters: Mel Brooks, and Keegan-Michael Key, and others as well. Also, the latest, also the movie The Intern comes out this month. The two main players in it are Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway, with a supporting role by Rene Russo. The Intern looks interesting, definitely. Let's see. And then, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's pretty much it for September in terms of big movies and little releases with, you know, actors and actresses that I know of. Definitely. Just some that catch my eye. I may not go over all of the movies I mentioned for September, but you know, I'll go over the big ones, definitely. But that's it. That is it for my August movie reviews. My August movie review, kind of the review of the month of August in terms of movies, and my sneak peek into September. So that's it for this video. D-Rock 1992 out.